right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Board Operations Committee to order. Thank everyone coming out tonight. Just remind everyone that please keep your mic on mute unless you're speaking. Be courteous to each other. Speak clearly, and use the chat feature. Although right now I think I can see everybody, but if we happen to do any type of briefings or anything, please make sure that you do use the chat room. All right, I'm going to call the roll of the BOC members. So tonight we have Dick, present, okay. Nancy?
I'm here.
Jenny?
Present.
Milton?
Here.
Andy? He's here. All right, thank you very much. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda? Jenny moved. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay, Milton. Any discussion? Any objections? Agenda's approved. Okay, in that case, we have also approved the minutes of November 30th, our last BOC meeting. So I'd like to move right along then to our agendas. We're coming to the end of the year, end of the fiscal year. So we actually have 2 months, March and April, 2 work sessions, 2 meetings. Your copy, March 11th, Board of Directors work session. You can see the topics that are proposed. We definitely want to discuss the Newtown Planning and Visioning Report, which Kristen had sent out last month. That big long report. So that's kind of first on the agenda. And then I'd like to do a cybersecurity briefing for the board. The audit committee has been interested in having the board have a better understanding of the overall situation. And I think what we'll do too is we'll invite our 2 resident members of the audit committee to attend that part of the board meeting. Because as I said, the audit committee has been very, very interested in the cybersecurity. And then just the usual stuff: budget update, state legislation, development tracker, capital project.
Andy,
Yes.
that audit committee piece on cybersecurity, shouldn't that be a closed meeting?
No. This is Chuck is going to come and talk to the board in open session. I mean, we're not getting into the gory details on.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it's more like, here's what we're doing. Here's some of the things, all public, and just let the board know what's coming.
All right, fine.
Okay, Jenny.
Yeah, Andy, you might want, I assume this is going to happen, but Milton might want to, may I ask Milton if he wants to make sure that Kristen sends out that report, X number of days before the work session, because people have a lot on their plate. The discussion in Newtown Planning and Visioning Report.
Yes, we can. Well, that's a 400-page report. Yes, we can send it again.
Yeah, I mean, just, what the board's been doing with a lot of issues. So I'm just trying to make sure that the board doesn't have to be going through stuff looking for it, and it comes in a timely. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the Board of Directors work session on March 11th?
Andy, my name is on there, and I wonder what we're doing here. If you've just run through everything and have told us what everything is going to be on the agendas, I might as well leave. I mean, there are other issues and questions, and that's why we take turns being on the BOC, because we really would like to participate and have a say in what goes into these agendas.
Okay, what would you like to add?
Well, I think we have not seen a sports and fitness dashboard for a long time. That would be nice to see. I know that there have been surveys done of our facilities, such as the Haven, and I don't mean to beat that one because I know it's already dead. But what is the point in doing these surveys if we don't get to see the results of them? That would be nice to see. I understand that we should be getting a report on the commercial assessments and their abatements, if there's been anything happening with those, or what kind of abatements we have been getting for this past year. I would like to see that or have that presented to the board. I'd also like to have a discussion about a return of the committees, because it seems like the board is simply following along by the nose, and rather than the board having any opportunity to give genuine input from the committees, I think we've lost that entirely, and I think it would be a mistake. And as everybody knows, I'm not returning next year, but I think it is worth a conversation.
Okay, let's see. Abatement stuff is probably covered under fiscal year 2021 budget update, if there are any. Right, Susan? Yeah.
So I was going to suggest that the dashboard and the abatements update be on the March 25th meeting with the quarterly financials, if that would be all right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, Susan, we want to make sure that the abatements are something that's ongoing. Let's make sure we have the time to put the dashboard together.
Okay, I think we can by the 25th.
Okay, then if we feel we can commit to it for the 25th.
Yeah.
I think we've asked for this a couple times before, and we've been
Yes.
told that at this point we haven't gotten the information, or it's too early to report. So this is almost the end of the fiscal year. I would think that it should be early enough now, or I mean late enough now, that we should get an understanding of what the abatement issue is.
All right, let's see. Abatement. Okay, what else do you have on your list?
A discussion about the committees, a return to the committees to again give board members some participation in this committee, in this board. I asked about the surveys that people have taken that we have not seen.
Well, the surveys will come as part of the dashboard because
Dashboard.
the Clara Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're all
we
part of
will
the
see
Clara
that.
Bridge. That's part of the dashboard.
Okay, so that'll go on the May or March 25th agenda?
Yep.
Okay. And I guess that's it
No.
at the moment. No?
Committees, right?
Committee?
Yes. So,
The committees, well,
talk
yeah.
about committees. You wanted the board to talk about
Have
committees.
a discussion about going back to the committees. Having a financial committee, an external committee, and it's similar to what we had before.
Okay. So before we had like external relations, strategic planning, strategic implementation, and planning and strategy. Those were the three committees. The financial committee was an advisory committee years ago that we just kind of disestablished.
Well, there was a budget committee.
Yeah, the budget turned into the finance committee.
Well, same thing, but why would you disestablish it? I mean, if we have somebody like Renee on the board who knows and understands this as a board member, I mean, it could be worth having a committee that can actually look into these more deeply than the entire board having an opinion about it.
No, I agree. It's just that a previous board disestablished that committee.
And then a new board could reestablish the
Yes, it
committee.
could. Absolutely.
So that's why we need to discuss it.
All right, let's go. Sherry, Ginny, Susan, and Milton.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm chiming in tonight because we're coming down to the end of the year. And there were several other areas. Angie, do you have a copy of the task list, of the board task list? There are various things that people have asked for the board to do. I have a couple of things on my list, but I'm sure there are some other things that have been on that task list.
I have the agenda topics log, which was sent out this afternoon by Janet to everybody.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about that. That was sort of the master agenda listing. But people have been asking for various topics to be on the task list. And so that's different.
Oh.
One of the things that's sort of left over unfinished business is that we had started that discussion about Fairway Hills.
Right.
And I think Dan had put together some interesting information. I think there's more information that's coming out about golf in general. There were some good options there. I think it would be good to continue that discussion so that if there's a sense of closure around that. So you might want to call that future golf options. And I think it would be important to take a look at the report from 2019, 2020, and 2021 so that we get at least 3 years. And when we're looking over the financials, to have total income, maintenance expenses, and salary expenses, in addition to the information about memberships, the number of people who are golfing, that type of thing. So that would give the board, I think, a really good overview of how Fairway Hills has been operating, what the trends might be, how we might be coming out of 20 in a different situation. But if Dan could get that information together, I think that would be very, very helpful. So that was one area. The other one that's sort of a holdover also is that I think Dennis was putting together a facilities report. It was supposed to be a comprehensive report on all CA facilities. I think this would be a good time to present that to the board. For people who have not seen the pools strategic plan, I think that needs to be included in information that goes out to all board members. I know I have a copy. I'm sure you have a copy, Nancy. You probably have one. I'm not sure some of the newer board members, and Dick, I'm sure you have that too. But just to make sure that people have that, it's very comprehensive. It involved a lot of public input. And I think that that's a good thing for people to see in light of what's being planned for this summer. Another thing that's hanging out there is that CA was asked to become involved in this issue about the business park and who is handling the architectural issues coming through the business park. And we've never had an answer, and we've never had a really comprehensive analysis. I think Sherry was working on some of the legal information, but the board never got an overview of that, of her information or any of that. So I think that needs to be there. And I think Nancy's point about committees is a very good one. And I think we're doing some parallel processing here because there were really 3 committees that I thought about being very helpful in terms of issues. It can be sort of an ad hoc committee about the pools, an ad hoc committee to review all of the information about Newtown zoning, because we not only had when I went back over my materials, I have materials from 2012, a comprehensive report from 2014, a report from 2016. We had a district zoning and general zoning workshop that we did. Remember, the guy from Chicago came out. We had the guy from Montgomery County.
Mhm.
And we've had lots of cases involving DPZ decisions about Newtown zoning. That's a lot of information, but it's all part of the analysis. And I'm sure Jess doesn't have that information. A lot of people don't have that information. So if we could gather that together, if you want the board to participate in helping on that, we could have an ad hoc committee to work with the staff. I mean, I really want to be supportive of this, but there's a lot to digest there. So that would be another thing I was thinking about. And there may be some other stuff.
All right, let's go. Jenny, Susan.
Thanks, Sandy. Okay, a couple of things, and I support a lot of what's been just said. I think we need more time, and perhaps that would be the quote new board discussing how they want to function in terms of permanent committees. But I really believe right now we must have an ad hoc committee on specific topics. One being the outdoor pool issue. I noticed there was absolutely excellent communication by our communication people on what the board did regarding the budget, but it totally left off our policy on perhaps opening other pools. But I understand that. But when are we going to deal with it? But I really think we need an ad hoc committee of the board to work with staff on the outdoor pool issue of whether we go beyond 15 pools. I feel very strongly about that. The other one is the ad hoc on Newtown. Again, ad hoc means it's task specific. There are X number of members. They meet with staff. They're willing to volunteer, and in many cases, and some cases, not all, they have a certain expertise to serve on these type of committees. So those two I would really push for. The other, I think we really should reserve for the new board to discuss how they want to set up in terms of permanent committees or not. The next thing is the Haven. I think we need to make sure this board gets an update on that, and maybe Milton's the best one to decide on that, whether March 11th is way too soon or is perfect timing. March 25th, or we do it at every board meeting. But I don't think we can go beyond March without really getting an update on what is happening now that the board has voted. That, to me, is essential in order to best serve our residents. That's it for now. Thanks.
All right, Susan and Milton.
I just wanted just a couple minor things. One, the aquatics master plan's on the CA website. If you go to search and you type in aquatics master plan, it goes right to it. So that's available to everybody right now already. And I just, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, with the budget committee, the members at the time resigned. They were didn't feel like they had good board support at the time, so they quit. And then when we tried to recruit new members the next 2 years, we couldn't get anyone. So certainly times have changed and it's worth trying again. But that was the situation at the time. And then when the committee structure was in place, when that was all set up with those three committees, it was the audit committee kind of took on the finance committee role because, as you all know, there's no way of knowing what kind of skills and expertise might be on the board in any given year. So it was set up that there would be those two resident experts. And then the review of the financials moved to the audit committee from a board committee at that time. But that's just some background. And that was before my time in this role. So just some history.
Milton?
My only comment is that Shari went down a long list of items, and I don't see how the city board is going to be able to get to all those topics. To me, my recommendation is whether it's once again, if it's a group of board members that prioritize those topics and come back to the full board, but you need to figure out what you want to accomplish or what you want to discuss through the remaining 2 months of this fiscal year. And then you have to look at the next board. I agree with Jenny that the next board, if there is going to be committees, the next board should be making that decision because you don't know what those committees will be.
Milton, can I just ask a question here? Milton, do you know what's happening with the Newtown charrette? Have you heard anything about what's happening?
Only it's on the agenda for the 11th, and Chris, if you remember from the board meeting, Kristen is saying the county is behind schedule on the charrette. So I don't have a date when those charrettes, Newtown charrettes, are supposed to be starting.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I'm on the public committee, and everything has been backed up. I was just wondering whether you have heard anything about that, because I think that's another thing that having, some kind of public process is going to be very important. And whether that has been the hang up, I don't know. But all right, thank you.
All right, Dick?
Yeah, I just want to weigh in on this committee question. We had committees at one time, and it was a disaster because everybody wanted to know what the other committees were doing. And so instead of having individual committees coming in and making reports, an individual committee would meet with 9 or 5 to 6 people looking over their shoulders, and it just got unmanageable. And as for ad hoc committees, most of these subjects are things that the board should address as a whole, like budgets. We have had discussions going back months about the budget. I don't see how a committee could go in there and look at things that the board as a whole can't look at. Things like swimming pools, that's not a board responsibility. Once we have a policy on what we want and we express the policy, which is if there's more money, let's open more pools, that's a staff responsibility. And I don't want to be in a situation where the board is deciding which pools to open and which to close and what the hours are and how many lifeguards to hire. That's a staff responsibility. If we don't like the way things are going, if we're getting complaints, let's bring it up at the board, but let's not try to micromanage this. So I'm wary of committees. And once we have a specific issue where we need 2 or 3 people to sit down and write something particular about a particular subject for the board to review, that's when it's good to set aside some people. And I think we've done that in the past successfully. But this is a strange time to be talking about changing our committee structure.
Okay, lots of things. Wow. So let me try to address some of them. Newtown zoning. It sounds like the best thing for right now, given that we've only got 2 months for this new board. This board, and then the new board comes in. We have at least one new member. So it sounds like what would be very helpful is if we collected all those Newtown zoning documents that Shari referenced in one location. So I'm thinking of like a Google Docs folder, so creating a Google Docs folder that would hold Newtown zoning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the Newtown zoning is going to be a big item for the next board. That's, the county's behind schedule, but eventually the county's going to go ahead and do something. So I think a Google Docs folder is the way to at least get all those documents done. And I think the same thing with a Google Docs folder for the commercial covenants, because we have had a lot of information about the commercial covenants. And you're right, it's come out over different times. So maybe if we simply have a Google Docs folder and we can put, the commercial covenants information in there. And some of it is, board specific. I mean, confidential just to the board. But that way there would be one location where people could see where. So does that make sense?
Yeah, Andy, I think, I understand some of that material may be confidential. I think a lot of that material was made public
Oh, yeah.
in those other years. In fact, I have my notes from when you came and addressed our village association to talk about Newtown zoning. So this really goes back in time, and you did a great presentation with it. But a lot of those kinds of things really can be public. So please don't put them behind the firewall that prohibits us from making our own files. I think that is very, very hard for board members that are trying to collate all this information and may want to file it in different ways and have notes of different things. That's one of the things that we're struggling with some of these big topics. So, I understand there may be certain things, maybe two files, if you feel that one has to be confidential and one is documents that have been, readily available, but just scattered since 2012-13.
Yeah, I think the one thing,
Good point.
like you said, maybe what you do is you look at a two-phase part. First, you gather all the documents. And then you just decide, okay, how do we put them out? But at least I think the two-step is a better process. Let's gather them first so we know what they are. And then figure out, because making them public is a little bit harder in a sense that that involves the web and communications folks and everything.
But can we just make them available to the board?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was thinking. But
But what I'm saying is don't throw everything behind the firewall.
Well, first we have to gather them. We have to gather them, right?
Right. I'm happy to work with you on that in terms of listing out, and with all the board members on listing out the dribs and drabs, at least that I know about.
Yeah, I mean, if you could start your list, that would be great.
And if you will start something from your end, because you've been working on this for many, many years,
I know,
Andy.
long time.
Yeah.
All right, we got that and that. Aquatics report is on the web, so all you have to do is the board we can give the board the URL. But yeah, I have looked at it before on the web, and I know if you do search, aquatics, it'll come up, aquatics report.
All right, so you just go under the aquatics area, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, I did a search. There are actually a number of reports that are out there on the web. There's a whole actual section out there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying, Andy and Sherry. It's not well organized, and that's what I know our staff is doing their best now in terms of how we communicate and making improvements, and this is clearly one.
All right, let me see what else we had here. Committees. I have to echo Milton and Dick and say, look, let's leave that issue to the next board, because I know we have ideas. Okay, all of us have ideas. But actually, I don't know who's going to be on the new board. Outside of Lynn, Alan, and myself will be carrying over. But I don't really know what the new board is going to look like and what type of committee structure they might want to to have. But we can certainly carry that over. That'll be one of the topics we'll carry over, just like, yeah, Jenny, excuse me, I see you there. Jenny?
Hey, finish what you're saying and then I'll go next.
Oh, I'm trying to think, let's see. So committees. Fairway Hills is actually on the list of topics, probably carried over to the new board. The info on Fairway Hills should probably be available with the third quarter report, I think, Susan, right? That will list actually several years. I think the quarterly report gives you several years back.
It just gives two. The
3 years.
budget is several years. In the budget document, you can see 4 years, but in the quarterly, it's just 2.
So that is coming with the third quarter report, which is coming out, and will be reviewed by the audit committee, and then the board obviously will see it too, for March 25th. Okay,
Is it going to be a separate agenda item?
No, it's just on the agenda as quarterly review.
All right, so I don't think that's going to jog for people that's specifically what we're looking at, and it doesn't carry through from Dan what those various options were. And there are already people in the community that are talking about this. So, Dick is always saying, that we try to get out ahead of an issue rather than let it sit, number one. And number two, you don't want to overload whatever the next board is going to be with all of these pressing items, because then establishing priorities becomes really hard. So I don't see any reason why we can't at least get to work on that where we dropped off, which was COVID, when COVID intruded.
Well, let me ask Milton if we actually...
Well, no, we haven't, Shari, we haven't done anything since the onset of the pandemic. We were having discussion with the board about, remember we had come to the board, I wanted to say a year and a half ago, was a couple of options for the next version of Fairway Hills, but we stopped all of that because, number one, we didn't have the dollars in the capital budget to go further, and we just stopped that with the pandemic. And I thought you were talking about the performance of the 2 golf courses, which will, as Andy said, will be reflected in the third quarter financials. But the next steps with Fairway Hills, we're not ready to proceed with that because we had totally stopped any looking at that, because we were at a point where we were about to hire an architect to look at give us some iterations, some drawings of what we want to do, whether we wanted to, and once again, this is just talking, whether we wanted to make it a 9-hole versus 18-hole and all those things.
Yeah. I think it would be great to get back to that initial conversation. I understand you may not have the funds right now to undertake that, but that would be a great jumping off place for the next board to pick that up. So maybe, this is kind of an interim period where we can sort of seed you into that next board by letting them know that that's an important topic. I think it might be a good idea.
All right, let's go Jenny and Dick. Jenny and then Dick.
Okay. I think the way I see it is I thought, maybe I'm mistaken, we were going to be presented with a plan about options for Fairway Hills last March. And because of COVID, that was pulled back. And also because what I heard is it would cost X number of dollars, which we didn't have. So I was under the impression that we actually had done X amount of work and we're ready to present some options. Now, apparently, why we had that on the agenda and pulled it back, I don't know if you're saying that's not the case. But that's what I was under the impression of. And there's a lot of rumors going around about what some of those plans may or may not have been. So I think what we're just saying is make sure sure it's on the agenda so that it is presented to the new board at least by June, because you want to be planning if there are any budget requirements for whatever the options are. That's, I think, what we're saying. No? I mean, yeah, I agree with you in terms of this board, but I do think you can't keep this hanging over people's heads that live in the area, and golfers and people that keep saying, why do you have 2 golf courses? So I don't have any position on this. I'm just saying, I think we're going to have to deal with this and deal with it early, not use the same excuse, we can't deal with it because it's a budget issue. So that's all I'm saying. It needs to be raised to the top, a high priority. The other thing on that I have not heard any comment on is, why are we not any place on any of the agendas having something that says update on the Haven? People are asking for that. They really have a lot of questions about that. Yes, we voted, but that is still something we owe the public in terms of where are we, what's happening, et cetera. The third thing is, I am not asking for committees. I thought I made that very clear. I am asking for a simple ad hoc committee on which I think we owe the public, on the possible opening of the 9 pools. That's it. And I think we need to keep on top of it. I see absolutely nothing on these agendas that deals with that issue. But it's not supposed to be on the agenda. It's supposed to be handled by staff, was the policy we approved. And I'm simply saying, since it's with the staff, I don't think the board should completely drop the ball and not take any responsibility for having an ad hoc committee that only functions on this issue and disbands as soon as this issue is solved one way or the other. That's all I'm asking for.
Well,
Okay.
Ginny, keep in mind that these agendas are just for the end of the current fiscal year. It does not go into FY20. These agendas do not go into FY22.
I think I have.
Yeah,
the floor
but
next.
my point was, let me just respond to Milton, Dick. Is that okay? My point was, maybe things happening in terms of our revenue. Maybe it'll be more than we expected from this current budget that we need to consider. Maybe there are some other options. I don't know, Milton, and maybe we need to be prepared so that it's not just May that we hear things. Maybe it'd be something where action would be taken in June. Or early July. So I don't think the board can wait to have discussions and voting.
We still have.
I think I have the floor next.
Okay.
Okay, Dick.
Well, first of all, as I said before, we have made a policy decision that if money turns up, we will look at reopening some or all the rest of the pools. That is a policy decision. We can expect staff to come back to us on a regular basis as to where the budget stands and whether they've scared up some money for pools, at which time we can talk about this. We don't need to have somebody bothering Susan every day, hey, do we have money for the pools or not? We don't need an ad hoc committee here. Let's see what happens. I want to say something about Fairway Hills. First of all, we've cut our capital budget now for 2 years in half. So when we get out of this current crisis, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of projects that have been put on hold. And we're going to, at that point, have to decide, we're going to have to re-examine which ones take priority. Fairway Hills is something that people have been discussing. I have promised my community that we weren't going to do anything without their involvement. And so I don't like the idea, we can go to them with a batch of plans. Before we go to them with the plans, before we talk to architects, we really ought to have some policy decisions as to what our objectives are. What is it we're trying to do? I don't want to have somebody coming up with putt-putt courses or whatever unless we have just told them these are the things, these are the holes that have to be filled. The other thing is, I've lost my train of thought. I had something else on. Oh, yes. When we look at things for the golf courses, remember that because of COVID, the financial situation on the golf courses has changed dramatically. We've got people who were formerly using indoor facilities who now are out playing golf. So we're going to have some funny financials until things sort out with COVID. It will be impossible to decide what the golf course situation is. Are people going to be coming back to a sport which had previously been declining? Or is it going to continue to decline? So the golf course question is a question that it's years too early to start thinking about what we're going to do with Fairway Hills. We got too much on our plates before we get near Fairway Hills.
Okay, Susan.
I'm going to pass. I'm okay.
All right. Take care. We're going. All right. Update on the Haven. Milton, is it possible just to include an update on the Haven as when we do the dashboard on March 25th?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Milton.
Right. So we got that one. Right. I get right at the moment, I don't see what we can possibly do on Fairway Hills. Staff hasn't done any prep work. And as Dick said, we did promise we would involve the community, but we've got a long way to go before we get to the community. I think committees, what else? So does anybody want? So I'll go back, look at the March 11th agenda right at the moment. The discussion of the new town, the report. And then if you look ahead, there is a discussion on Newtown charrette scheduled for April 8th, because we hoped by then we would have some information. So I think we've kind of got that covered, at least the start. We'll put a dashboard on March 25th, which will be in conjunction with the third quarter report. And certainly we'll see out of the third quarter report what, if any, abatement information comes, because the last time we had the quarterly report, there were no abatements. I mean, or they were minimal. And so there wasn't anything to report. But now the third quarter's here, so we can kind of see what happens there. So make sure, Susan, if you would, at the third quarter report, just, even just to say no changes in abatements, or minimal or something. But that, at least we'll get that. Okay, facilities report. I'm trying to remember what in the world that was. Susan, do you remember?
Yeah, so Dennis and his team are working on that. It's a hefty lift. It's a lot of work, but they're pretty close. So I don't know what the timing is, but I can follow up and let you know tomorrow. He's out this week, but they've been working on it. I've seen some work on that and have participated. I just am not sure if it's done, but it's a pretty substantial amount of work that they're pulling together.
So maybe that could go in the April 8th, maybe just check with him and see if that's possible to bring that in the work session.
I'll check.
Right, let's see if we
thank
can
you.
get a date from Dennis as to when he might be able to do that. Nancy. Oh. Nancy, you're muted. Nancy, you're muted.
You said that there was nothing to report about the abatement because they were minimal. Isn't that something to report? I mean, isn't that what we all want to know?
So, yeah.
Susan?
So that's what it was at the end of the last quarter. So we were through January. We're pulling that together now and having meeting with virtually the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. So we will pull all of that together as soon as we can. So their process is ongoing right now, but I don't think it's going to be any worse than what we projected, and it may be even better. So I think we'll be okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. So let's kind of go back here to the March 11th work session agenda. Can I get a motion for that agenda?
So moved.
Okay, and Dick seconded. All right. All right. Any further discussion on the 11th? All those in favor of the agenda? Okay. All right. March 25th, the meeting. It was unanimous. So we want to add on the dashboard. So that would be under reports, presentations. It follows, just put it right after the financial report. 30 minutes.
Yeah, yes.
And I will point out that one of the major topics of discussion at the March 25th meeting is going to be the reserve fund policy and program. Because we need to do that 2 times before we vote on it. So we're starting that on March 25th. Because remember, the board indicated they wanted to approve that in April before the end of the year.
And then it's on the agenda again for 25 minutes, April 8th.
Yes, and then the vote is on April
22nd or something.
22nd, yeah.
22nd.
Okay, so those would be the 2 big things on the March 25th agenda: the abatement, the dashboard, which will also cover the abatements, and also an update. I'm sorry, the dashboard will cover the update on Haven, and the financial report will also make sure we cover abatements. And I will remind you that the audit committee will meet before our March 25th meeting to do an in-depth look at the third quarter financial report. And of course, everybody's welcome to attend that meeting. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Angie, with the dashboard and all of that information, you said 30 minutes. I'm suspecting that it's going to take longer than that.
All right.
We have not gone over the dashboard. We've got memberships in there. We've got all kinds of information, and I think there will be some questions, particularly since we're getting all this additional information about where we are and how to monitor all this stuff. So kick it up to at least 40 minutes, 45.
How about 45?
45. I think if we do better, that's
Right.
great. But otherwise, we've got enough time.
Yeah, let's go to 45.
Okay, great.
And what I'm also going to suggest is we drop applicable state legislation to 5 minutes, because by the time April rolls around,
Yes,
they're almost.
they've crossed and everything.
Right,
It's really.
I think by that time, Sherry may be able to just give the board an update on where those bills stand and what impacts they might have, which I think is important for our community to hear.
Did you see the April 8th agenda? Because that's on the April 8th agenda. Wrap up on state legislation. So, sure, you're doing really well.
Okay, I did just have for point of information, on April 8th, you said that was going to be, is this an update on the Newtown charrette? Or is this an update on on HOCO by design
Both.
plan?
Both.
Okay, so it's the whole thing,
It's a whole thing.
the whole enchilada. Okay, thank you.
Assuming the county is going to have something to report by then, you know.
Right.
I mean,
I'm certainly hoping. Yeah. Okay.
Let's say we have set aside time
Okay.
for those topics on April 8th, assuming that the county is going to have something to let us say.
Okay.
And you're on the committee, so you'll get a heads up.
If I know anything, I'll let you know. Okay.
All right. So for March 25th, we'll drop applicable state legislation to just 5 minutes. It's a questions only, you know. And then we'll add 8D dashboard for 45 minutes. All right. Is there a motion to approve that agenda? That's going to be a big agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Dick seconded. All right. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Looks unanimous. Good. Thank you. All right. Move on to April 8th. And as Shari already said, you know, we have 20 minutes set aside for general plan update, focus Newtown charrette. We also have further discussion on the reserve fund, you know, just in case the board has questions, a wrap up on state legislation, and then our usual topics, budget update, discussion of the development tracker, capital project open space. We also have set aside some time for the announcement of the new Columbia Association president, CEO, assuming we choose a new president by then. What we're thinking is having that person actually attend the meeting and say a couple words. It's kind of like an introduction. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that assumes that the board is going to make a decision. If not, we're going to take it off the agenda if we don't make the decision. Jenny.
That's a good idea, Andy. On number D, 4D, same thing Sherry said before. I really think 20 minutes is way too much at this point in the session. It's over. Just 5 minutes, I think, is sufficient. And she'll give a written report in advance, so if we have any questions, we can raise them, but it'll all be
right.
solved.
Anybody have any problem with that? Just 5 minutes and it'll be a written report.
And Angie, just make a note. Susan's going to check on that facilities report to see if that
Right.
could be slipped in on the
Right.
8th. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can do it. If not, we'll try to do it on the 25th. If we can't do it, then it'll go to the new board. Makes sense? All right, with that change, is there a motion to approve that agenda, which is another jam-packed agenda? Dick moved. Is there a second? Milton seconded. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of that agenda on the April 8th? Looks unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the last meeting of this current board, April 22nd. So you'll notice that we have a vote scheduled on the reserve fund policy. You know, so you know, hopefully we only set aside 10 minutes. We're hoping that we've had 2 meetings of discussion and we'll have answered all the board questions and they'll be ready to vote by then. We also have set aside a time for kind of an end of the year wrap up. You know, kind of especially like where we stood on May 1, 2020 and where we stand now. You know, kind of like what the year is. And then the last big thing on the agenda is recognition for Milton. This is his last meeting. And so we're going to set some time aside for that.
Good.
Let's make it a surprise.
Yeah, okay. You know, the problem is we had to set aside time. So, I mean, otherwise it would have just kind of, gone by.
Hey, you can just wave to me.
Actually, could I make
was
a
thinking-
suggestion on that? We did this with our executive director that was leaving in another agency. I went in and actually presented awards, et cetera, or thank yous, while the board was on virtual. So, it may be Milton's in his office. It may be possible for some of us to be socially distanced, masks, all that in another office. But then personally, with social distancing and all that, make it more personal and thank Milton for all he's done as opposed to just virtually. I don't know. Think about it.
Well,
I had
we
my
need an ad
second
hoc-
shot
maybe we
today,
need
so
an ad hoc
if
committee.
you want to delegate me, I could take that on.
Another ad hoc committee.
if you have any,
Oh, I did it.
if you have any ideas, send them to me in email. Okay.
Trying to make it a
Sorry.
little more personal.
I think you had your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was thinking balloons and dancing girls, but I don't know if you'll go for that, Milton, so.
No, I don't think that's Milton's style at all.
All right, just the balloons. How about that?
All right. And yeah, I am serious. If you have some ideas, please email them to me. All right. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved.
Dick had his hand up first. Ginny
Second.
seconded. And of course, we will recognize other people who may not be coming back. So, but remember, the elections aren't till the 24th. So, all right. Any further discussion on that agenda? Our last one for the year. All right. All those in favor? Any objection to that one? Let's see. Nancy, no or yes or? Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So that passed unanimous. All right, and we'll try to stick Dennis's, facilities if he's ready, either in the 8th or the 22nd, whenever we can kind of see, he can give us the thing. All right, we obviously have a bunch of things to carry over for next year, and Janet has been tracking these. So, Milton?
Just one idea, just a suggestion for consideration. Given that you don't know what the composition of the new board is going to be come May 1st, and also you're going to have a new president and CEO, why don't you think about early in May having a board retreat where you can have an agenda where you can just talk about topics for the next, maybe just the next 6 months as opposed to the next 12 months. It would educate the new president and CEO, but also would be an education for the new board members.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
No, I'll second that. That sounds like a terrific idea.
Okay, so May, we'll try for a board retreat. If it's okay, Milton, I'm going to ask Janet to kind of look at the calendar,
Right.
and see what dates might be available, but we'll definitely plan on having a board retreat in May.
Right.
All right, anything else? All right, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and good discussion. We got a lot of things yet to get through. And I'll remind the board members, we got a really busy week next week. So, just we're going to be very busy. But thank you very much. Talking points, Janet, anything you want to say?
Yes, I do have those talking points. The BOC approved the March 11th, 2021 agenda for the board work session as presented. The BOC approved the revised agenda for the March 25th board meeting. And that revised agenda will have the addition of item 8D, which is the dashboard, to also include information on Haven on the Lake for 45 minutes. Item 6B, applicable state legislation, has a reduced time allocation from 10 minutes down to 5 minutes. And then just a note for item 8C, that third quarter financial report will include some information on abatements. The BOC approved the agenda for the April 8th Board of Directors work session with one slight adjustment to the time allocation for item 4D, the wrap up of state legislation. That time allocation is reduced to 5 minutes. However, if the facilities report is available, that topic will be added to the April 8th work session agenda. The BOC approved the agenda for the April 22nd board meeting as presented. Again, if the report on facilities has not been discussed on April the 8th and is now available, that topic will also be added to the April 22nd agenda.
All right. Thanks, Janet. All right. Hearing no objection, we can adjourn at 8:04. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
I know.
Bye-bye.
Bye.